Winning. I've outsmarted you on a number of levels. Beta. Well, actually, King's not. Beta.
That was a hot mess inside a dumpster fire, inside a train wreck.
Keep your mouth shut. I'm going to go in there and slap your face.
You know, we're going to rise like the Phoenix. And
Get in my limousine. Ride on 85. Get in my Learjet. Woo!
Welcome to the Asterisk and Collusion podcast. You're joined by the king himself. I'm here with my compadre, the Grizz.
Woo!
That's right. We're going to be talking a little more real draft football coming up next week, actually. You getting excited, Grizz?
Oh, yeah, dude. The rumors are flying around. Every night I go home and I don't have cable, but I just go on YouTube and there's like hours of video to watch and there's tons of smoke being blown. So this time of year is a lot of fun.
That's right, dude. Nothing's real. Just like Gato's championship.
Right. Fake news.
All fake news.
We have a lot of stuff to cover here, but to highlight what we did last time was picks 1 through 10. And let's just go through that real quick. We're not going to get into discussion. We'll just say the Bears had got Caleb Williams, USC quarterback. The Washington Commanders I had Drake May, UNC. New England, Jaden Daniels, quarterback, LSU. Minnesota trading up with the Cardinals, getting J.J. McCarthy, who we agree is a smokescreen. That is one of the weirder players in the draft. And I had said in the previous video that the Arizona Cardinals had 3 first-round draft picks. They have 2, but I think if they make this trade, they get 3. And then we have Chargers at 5, taking Malik Neighbors. The Giants at 6 with Marvin Harrison Jr., and that's another player who's interested. I've heard a lot of rumors the Bears may trade up and get him if he falls that far. The Titans, Joe Alt seems a very good fit there, left tackle, Notre Dame. Falcons, Dallas Turner, outside linebacker, defensive end, Alabama. Chicago at 9, Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver, LSU. I think they'll trade that pick, though. And then Jets, I think we did the Jets, and we kind of picked that one up. That was Rome and Dunze, the wide receiver out of Washington. And I'm kind of on the fence with him. I'm not sure how good he is. He doesn't show the same upside as the other two. I have him in a different class. I could see him falling a little bit, but let's go to number 11, which is the Arizona Cardinals, the trade they get back from the Vikings.
Yes.
This is hypothetical. What do you feel about the Cardinals actually making a pick at 4? Do you think it'll happen?
I mean, if they do make this trade, I actually think I think they'll stay at 4. Unless there's some like big offer, which could happen, but I think they'll stay at 4. But if they do go through with a trade, team like you said, Minnesota, excellent choice to trade up, get a QB, and that would leave them at number 11. And who do you have them taking there?
I think there'll be a lot of trades. So we have the Cardinals. This would be their first. Wait, where's their first pick? What pick will they have, Matt? If they traded, so they have. This
would be their first one if they.
It messes me up all this trading. So this would be their first pick. Right now, I have Jared Verse, the defensive end outside linebacker, FSU. I like him a lot. I have him compared to Peter Bullaware, the old Florida State defensive end who had a good career. Especially, I think he won a Super Bowl and did it with the Ravens. And I think Verse will be a very good player in the league. I think he needs to play on a team that has an established defense and probably in warmer weather. Those Southern boys sometimes you see a lot of flaky defensive ends out of Florida State in the past. If you remember some of those guys, they were big bust. But Arizona really needs to address their defensive line. I think they got one of the worst ones in the league. How do you feel about that pick? What do you have there?
Well, with all these hypothetical trades, it's kind of hard to, keep track of everything. But going with Jared Verse isn't a bad pick. I actually think like there could be a receiver like Rome Odunze that drops a little bit, like you said before. I think they will go for a receiver deep class. So if they have a shot at maybe like a Brian Thomas Jr. or Rome Odunze, I think they'll take one of those guys at 11 if they're still on the board. If not, you could be right. Going with like just the best player overall left in the draft, and that's the Jared Verse.
I heard an interesting rumor, and it's true because you look at the media, how we pump up skill position sets and think of it from a fantasy football standpoint. But GMs want to win in the trenches, and that's one of the arguments being made online. So, you know, you should expect to see some tackles and some guys you didn't think to pop into the top 15, maybe even the top 10, like an offensive tackle or defensive tackle. We'll get to one of them here in a minute. But wide receivers typically tend to fall a little bit. Teams don't like to draft wide receivers very high because you win in the trenches. So that's a good argument to be made right there. But the next one's really interesting. We have the Denver Broncos at we well, we did talk about the Cardinals. We didn't talk about their lineup. Let's just go back to that for real quick. They had Kyle Murray, James Conner, and they really don't have any wide receivers, like you said. They got like Rondell Moore and some other guys, okay, but they do, like you said, need to address the wide receiver. But going back to the Broncos, they have Javonte Williams and Cortland Sutton. They have no quarterback, and their coach. He's just foaming at the mouth, Sean Payton, to get a quarterback. And I have them taking Bo Nix here, but I don't know what to think about this pick. And I'm scratching my head because I think Bo Nix is 24. He'll turn 25 this year. And that's pretty old for a rookie. How do you feel about Bo Nix as a whole?
I mean, I'm very lukewarm on all the remaining quarterbacks on the board. I mean, for various reasons, Bo Nix, I just don't think older quarterbacks do well in the pros.
I agree.
The Winkies, the what's his name, Brandon Whedon's and stuff. He's not quite as old as those guys, but he's still got some age on him. I would actually maybe look at Michael Penix Jr. here.
Yeah, that could happen.
I'm not saying like I like Penix, but like you're saying, the Broncos need a QB, something fierce, and they might just be in a situation where like they have to they're drafting for need, which honestly you never want to be in, but they're so bad. So yeah, I'm going to go Penix here, but like for some of the same reasons that you were talking about Bo Nix for Denver. So
yeah, I mean the two both have issues. Penix has got a bad medical rap. I don't even have Penix in my first round right now. I just couldn't put him in there, but I think he will go first round. But you never know. Like Drew Brees went round 2, and that's kind of a comparison to Bo Nix. Bo Nix was a transfer, and Oregon put up a lot of points. They have a pretty good offense with Franklin, and they got a center who I think is going to go round 1. But I really don't know what to think of Bo Nix as a whole. Buyer beware right there for me. He's got a good build, and he can make all the throws. I just don't know what his upside is like right now.
I just think the Denver Broncos are going to blow it no matter what. So I mean, at this point, the QBs left on the board, I think, are lose. That's just where I stand. But
yeah, I could see it happening. But let's move on. We got the Las Vegas Raiders at number 13, and it's funny because I put the fantasy players together, and they have, even though they lost their running back Jacobs, they still have a very good offense on paper, even for fantasy. Their quarterback is another quarterback who they started him last year, had some ups and downs. Remember that one game they had where they scored like 70 points against somebody? Who was that?
I have no idea.
He went like, I think that guy threw like 5 or 6 touchdowns, and the rest of the year he's just kind of lukewarm. But they had that one weird game. But I don't think they're going to show much confidence in Aiden O'Connell. I don't know. But Zamir White's a decent little player. He's probably their starting tailback, but they could probably upgrade that in the draft. But then you got Michael Meyer, the tight end out on Notre Dame. He was good. Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and Hunter Renfrow. They have a good receiving core.
Yeah, no, they do. They're a solid team, mid-tier team. I don't know. They could go in a few different directions here. Just taking the best player available would be good for them. We're talking about teams that could trade up. I mean, I don't know what they have in their war chest, but I could see the Raiders making a move if like one of those top 3 QBs fall a little bit to like maybe like 5 or 6. A move could happen.
They're running with their offensive coordinator as their head coach, who filled in nicely last year. We don't know what Adams is going to do. He's come out recently and said he wants to stay there, but I'm not really buying it. That could be trade bait for get a quarterback. But I think if they stay here at 13, I have them picking the best offensive tackle. They need a tackle bad. And
Yeah.
I can't pronounce his first name, but Fasanu, the offensive tackle out of Penn State, I think would be a solid grab there. I haven't compared to Laramie Tunsil, who's a really good pro tackle. And
Mhm.
I don't know what to think about that tackle out of Penn State. He's a really big guy, and he had a nice little career at Penn State. But I think he's one of those guys, if he doesn't work out immediately at left tackle, they could swing him out to right tackle, and he'll be fine.
Yeah, I could see him at a right tackle. He had a lot of hype starting at the beginning of the draft
Yep.
cycle. And he's kind of dropped a little bit. At one point, they had him as the number one overall
Yep.
offensive tackle overall. But I don't like it when players are falling in the draft too much. That's just my own personal preference. And especially for no apparent reason. I think maybe teams are just getting better looks at him and there's just don't have him higher ranked higher than he was. So I'm going to say he could probably fly out to like right tackle, like you say. But yeah, I mean, I can see this pick. Like I say, I can see a few different ways the Raiders could go in this, but yeah, why not? Let's go with
Yeah.
that
He,
guy.
yeah, that Fasanu guy, and I think he didn't work out, or the combine numbers weren't as well. I mean, I don't think he'll drop that far. I think he stays in the top 20. And but next we have the New Orleans Saints, and again, that's a strange team. They're just a real oddball team. They got Derek Carr at quarterback. I don't know what they're doing with Alvin Kamara. I don't even know if he's under contract. They got Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, that burner wide receiver. He just blew up some games last year. And your favorite player, Taysom Hill.
Whew,
Um, yeah,
stud.
you love him. But I have the Saints picking the best player available here, and I think it's going to be Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. I don't know where he goes. He is a very strange player in this draft because he's like a hybrid, but I have him compared to Sam Laporta. I think they're
Yeah.
very comparable players. They run good routes, and they're more receivers than blocking tight ends. And but they said he is just that good. He knows how to get open. Um, he's definitely not going to be used in the line of scrimmage to pass block too much. But how do you feel about Brock Bowers and where he goes in the draft?
I mean, yeah, like you were saying, he could go anywhere in this draft. He's in the number one tight end, receiving tight end. So I think and I think the Sam Laporta comparison is very accurate, actually. A team like Saints could definitely use him. Derek Carr kind of sucks, but give him more weapons, maybe he'll be above average. So I think Brock Bowers is pretty accurate here. I could also see him go somewhere on the defensive side of the ball. There's a few defensive players we haven't really gotten into the meat of the defense of the
Yeah,
draft. A
we
lot
have
of
not really even touched defense hardly at all yet. It's
yeah,
that bad.
lot of corners out there.
Mhm.
So I could see them possibly doing like some going somewhere on defense, trying to strengthen that up, but they also could just be like, hey, let's just go all offense and pray that Carr can get it together to get him to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints, like I said, I can't figure them out. They did pay Derek Carr a lot of money, so I don't see them doing anything with the quarterback this year. And I did hear the quarterback class coming out next year is going to be even worse or much worse. So that's going to put more pressure on teams to get a quarterback this year. The next pick we have is the Indianapolis Colts. And again, we don't know where they are. I mean, look at this fantasy roster. Anthony Richardson at quarterback, he did some weird things last year. He got hurt and he shined a little bit, but it's more so because of his legs.
Mhm.
Jonathan Taylor, as we know, is kind of been hot and cold. He killed me that 1 year in fantasy. Michael Pittman's a nice receiver. They got Alec Pierce. Uh, I really don't know what to make of this team. They're kind of solid right in the middle, but this is like you said, this is where I think the cornerbacks start to fall. So I have the Indianapolis Colts taking Terrion Arnold, the cornerback out of Alabama. He is my top cornerback this year in the draft, and I have him compared to Trayvon Diggs, and he's a very solid quarterback. I mean, he played at Bama. He plays in a pro-style defense. He's been starting, I believe, for 2 years. He's got really good closing recovery speed, and he's got a lot of picks to back it up, like Diggs does. So, who do you have as your top cornerback in the draft?
I mean, I'd probably go with Arnold myself. There's some other good ones out there. Um, there's Mitchell out of Toledo, Wiggins, Clemson. There's always Kool-Aid.
Yeah, that's
Um,
crazy. Who names their kid Kool-Aid?
yeah, someone seeing NIL money in the future. Yeah, no, there's some good ones out there. It could be like you say, Arnold from Alabama going to the Colts. I wouldn't put a offensive lineman past the Colts either. There's a couple good ones still out there, like JC Latham, Mims from Georgia, etc. Only reason I say that is, you drafted Anthony Richardson last year as your franchise. He went out hurt. You want to protect your franchise as best as can. I personally wouldn't run him as much, but then he would suck. So I don't know, but I might go a little bit more on the offensive line side of the ball. But I mean, they need defense too. So Colts need a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's another. I mean, the tackle class is really weird to me between 3 and 8. There's little. I mean, you could have 7 or 8 tackles or offensive linemen go the first round, and I just don't know how teams feel about them. It depends on your scheme. And I've heard a lot of good things about the Washington offensive tackle too. But yeah, so we have the first cornerback getting taken at 15 by the Colts. I mean, you can never have enough good cornerbacks. It's a passing league, and you got to have good cornerbacks if you want to stay in the league and stay in the ball game. So I think Arnold will be an excellent quarterback at the pro level.
Mhm.
Next pick we have is Seattle Seahawks. And this is like you just mentioned him, J.C. Latham from Alabama. That's who I have them taken. And I have him compared to Juwan Taylor. I don't know if you've looked at Latham. Have you seen how big he is?
He's a big dude.
I think he's like 6'8", 360, and he lost 20 pounds for the combine. And he actually moves very well. My only problem with the tackle that big is he too big. It's like he's got a little bit of nasty in him. Like that dude is huge.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think that dude could play left tackle in the league. I think he's just a guy you got to plug in at right tackle and just maul. They said you can't go around him, you got to go through him. And I think if you're running the ball and that guy's in front of you, good luck. And the Seattle Seahawks, you look at their fantasy players, they're not bad. Geno Smith, I'll look for him to take a step back this year, but they have a really good running back core. Kenneth Walker, Zach Cabernet. They got Metcalf, Lockett, Najigba. That's a nice little fantasy roster right there. And they even got a decent tight end. How do you feel about that pick and what the Seattle Seahawks do?
No, I think going offensive line for the Seahawks is the right call. Latham's, like you say, a monster player. Yeah, going crazy over there. No, but I think like going with the offensive tackle of some sort. We mentioned a couple other guys like Mims. There's a few other guys like out there that's like Troy Fatuna out of Washington. Actually a pretty good offensive line class. So
Mm-hmm,
I
it is.
agree going with an offensive lineman of some sort. And JT Latham could be the guy.
Yeah, I just don't know where he's going to go. I had him falling about a week or two ago, and I think after some of the podcasts and things I've read recently, that some teams do like him. They said he does move pretty well. I just think he's got to be a right tackle. I don't think he can protect the quarterback's blind side. There's no way you could be that big and move that well, but I could be wrong. But you rarely see tackles that big play on the quarterback's blind side.
Yeah.
But let's move on. We got Seattle taking J.C. Latham, offensive tackle out of Bama. A lot of Bama players in this draft, and that never seems to be a problem with Alabama. They just load up the draft.
Yeah, we'll see how that
And
goes after Saban.
I hope they suck for a couple of years. They're dirty. But
Yeah.
the next team is an interesting team, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you look at their quarterback there. I don't know how they're progressing. They kind of I mean, look at their roster, like their fantasy players. You got Taylor Lawrence, NTN, Travis NTN. They got, and we talked about this earlier. Evan Ingram had a really good season last year as a tight end. He kind of snuck in there. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. I mean, they got a decent roster, and everybody thought they were going to blow up last year, and I didn't see that happening. But what do you think the Jacksonville Jaguars' problem is, and what do you see them addressing in the draft?
Defense, actually. I think they're going to go somewhere on the defensive side of the ball. I believe you actually have Byron Murphy the second from the defensive lineman from Texas going to him, which could very possibly be the case. I think also corner. There's some still good corners out there, uh, like Mitchell out of Toledo. Is it
Mhm.
is it Quinion?
Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'll just go with that.
Yeah,
Eh, Um, I might have him going there at 17 to the Jaguars, but I do think they're going defense.
I think Byron Murphy is a player that people need to keep their eyes on. I
Mm,
wouldn't be surprised if he somehow sneaks into the top 10. I think he's a hot player. He's one of those guys who can penetrate gaps. He's a little bit undersized, but he's strong and he's got a high motor. He can move. He's not as fast as Aaron Darnold, but when you see a guy who can penetrate the line as a defensive tackle and get 8-10 sacks a year, I mean that's the kind of upside he has. Teams are going to want that. He reminds me a little bit of Tommy Harris, the old bear, kind of the same build and the way he runs. But he's a very interesting player, and the Jaguars do need to address their defensive line. So, Jacksonville Jaguars, Byron Murphy, defensive tackle out of Texas, and they've also got another good defensive tackle there, Tavondre Sweat, but he just got arrested for your DUI. So, who knows what happens
yeah,
to that?
who knows about that? He might be falling a ways, but yeah, let's jump over to the 18th pick with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, the Bengals. Another? It's just so many weird situations carrying over from last year. Joe Burrow was hurt last year, and they got a situation with T. Higgins. We don't know what he is going to be doing during draft day because rumors are he's seeking a trade. They franchise tag him. Jamar Chase ain't going nowhere. He's still elite. What's the deal with Tyler Boyd? I can't remember
Uh,
what his
he's a
situation is.
free agent, isn't he? I think he's being shopped around, or he's pursuing other teams or something, isn't it?
I think so. I looked at. I think he's been in the league for like 10 or 11 years. It's hard to believe, and he spent all of them, I think, with the Bengals. But uh, I don't know what the Bengals are. They're kind of in transition. I don't know what Burrow technically is. He went to the Super Bowl. He's had one really good year, but the problem with the Bengals, and it's happened ever since Burrow's been in the league, he just gets killed. They have to protect Joe Burrow. I think if
Hmm.
they want to put together the next 3 or 4 years of him having a solid career and chance of making the playoffs and going to have a Super Bowl run, they got to protect his blind side. And I think Amarius Mims, the offensive tackle out of Georgia, can play left tackle. He doesn't have a lot of experience. I think he's only started one full year, but the scouting report on him is he's extremely athletic, he's thick, and he's really, really good at his position. I think if you watch his tape last year, it's excellent. He's got a huge upside. So, like again, he's a mauler. He's got long arms. If he doesn't work out at left tackle, they can move him to right tackle. I think the Bengals actually need about 3 starting linemen. They're that bad.
I mean, it feels like they've tried to address this offensive line several times over the years, ever since the Super Bowl, where it was clear they were just the worst unit on the field. And I don't disagree about going back to the well and trying to find some other offensive linemen and trying to get this right for Joe Burrow. Um,
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like they've been, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I agree. Like, I see an offensive lineman going here, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, they'll get a good one.
I think they've been patchworking their team through free agency and not really directing them, focusing their attention on the tackle position. But in this year's draft, they have an opportunity to do that. And I feel like they should. And if they trade T. Higgins and get an extra second round draft pick, they can get another tackle, guard, or center. So getting two offensive linemen the first 2 rounds, I think for them would be huge.
Yeah, at least one. I mean, definitely they need something maybe a little bit more on the interior. I think they lost Jonah Williams, their right tackle.
Yep.
So yeah, they could use one. That's for sure.
But yeah, so they have a lot of needs. They also need defensive line, but we had the Bengals taking Amarius Mims, offensive tackle out of Georgia. And let's move down to 19. How much time we got, Coop?
Man, we're still cooking for right now, so we got a little time.
All right. Well, number 19, the LA Rams. And I thought they had a really good season last year because people kind of counted them out. And I think that was because of the talent of Matt Stafford. And I mean, he made Puka Nakua, how you pronounce his name, look like Jerry Rice. I mean,
Yeah.
what a season. And Kerryon Williams, the Gatos player of the year right there, I think, in the Ashland Cup. I mean, he had a Pro Bowl season. Tyler Higbee is a nice tight end. Cooper Kupp's still solid when he plays. It's just when he plays, I don't think if I'm the Rams, I just steer away from the offense. I think the offense is fine.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to be a plug and play. It's a system that works. Stafford's good. They could take a lineman, offensive tackle, a guard. They could. I mean, I think Stafford's still going to be really good for 2 or 3 more years. But Aaron Donald just retired. I see them addressing the defense in this draft, even though it's not that strong. And the player you like is Kenyon Mitchell, or you pronounce his name, the cornerback out of Toledo. I've heard really good things about him. He's extremely athletic. Worked out very well at the combine. The problem with him, though, taking a player in the first round out of Toledo. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think Mitchell's a freak. I mean, he's like I almost have to pull up his stats, but he's a pretty thickly built corner. He's very fast and yeah, tested extremely well. But I love the guy. And he could go here, like you say, to replenish the defense. I'm actually leaning more towards, like you kind of hinted at it, like an offensive lineman, just to keep um Stafford upright, make sure he's protected. I mean, he's going. I just was looking. I saw where Stafford's going into his 16th year. And that's
Is he really?
yeah. I mean, that's old.
But he's still, I mean, he was awesome last year. You keep him
Oh
upright. He's got a top 5 arm in the league minimum.
yeah.
And I mean, they're going to put up points. And like, I would give Stafford 2 more years of elite offense ability. They're going to stay in the top 10 to 15 at least. So, I mean, Darnold retiring, and we counted the Rams out last year, and they kind of shocked us a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I almost kind of want them to double down on the offensive line and just go all in on all, like just try to have like the greatest show on turf again with Puka, Cooper Cup, and Kyron Williams, and just like try to just boat race every team out there. I'm
Yeah,
not saying hint hint fantasy football studs, all stars.
yeah, I mean, that could be a hot thing in the draft. And I mean, I wonder if Puka Nakua, or how you pronounce his friggin' name, he had a Pro Bowl season, and I can't even pronounce his name fully, but I bet you he'll be around to pick at least in the Ashton Cup, maybe even round 1. You know, I think Drill's going to be going. He's not going to let him slip very far. I guarantee you that.
No way, dude. Drill loves the guy. Naming
But
his
yeah,
kid after him, Puka.
Mitchell, I think, is going to be a very good pro. He's just one of those kind of small. I mean, Toledo is a small school. It's Division 1, I believe, but that's a small school. And I think he plays a lot like Devin Witherspoon, who was a high draft pick, I think, just last year. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Mitchell go a little bit higher. But like I said, we don't know. This is just our feelings, and we're trying to figure out where players go. But Mitchell is a hot name right now.
Oh yeah, no, Mitchell's hot. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised they go defense either. So, do you want to jump on to the 20th pick and talk a little Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, the Steelers. God, there's just so many interesting things going on. I mean, QB, who is it? Russell Wilson. He's on a 1-year contract for just a few $1,000,000, and they traded for Fields. I do think that Tomlin really kind of leans more towards Fields, but Fields is much younger, as we know. But I don't know what's going to happen there. I could see Wilson starting off. He stunk it up in Denver, in my opinion. He's just very boring. And I think it's why Sean Payton got rid of him. And I wonder how that'll play out this year. Who knows? But Najee Harris is, I think he had a decent year last year, but the other running back, Warren, was pretty good there, better than him in spurts. Fryermuth is a good tight end. They have a good wide receiver in George Pickens. And, you look at the Steelers, they look okay, but they need another wide receiver. I don't know what the Steelers are. They're in an excellent division, so they got a hit in their draft picks, and they've done very well with that historically. But if I'm looking at the roster and looking at like you said, where these cornerbacks are falling, I think this is a good place for them to address the cornerback position again. And there's about 4 or 5 of them that could fall right in here. But I think the best one right here is Nate Wiggins, the cornerback out of Clemson. He reminds me of Darius Slay. And he kind of is he's a very physical, strong cornerback. I believe he's like 6'2", and he can play the run well. I think that's a Steelers type player. And the Steelers need to get their way back because they've been soft the last few years. And I don't know if Tomlin's going to be around much longer.
No, you're right. Going corner or going defense could certainly be the case. I You mentioned also receiver. I would not. It all kind of depends on how the board falls, of course. At this point in the mock draft you have listed, I think Nate Wiggins would make a lot of sense here. I would also say that if Brian Thomas Jr. He's to me, Brian Thomas Jr. can go in a lot of different ways. He can go high, kind of where you have him. He could also maybe drop a little bit. I think he's definitely a first round receiver, but he could maybe drop down to 20. And if that's the case, I could see the Steelers taking him.
Yeah, I like him a lot, and I think he may have the highest upside of any wide receiver in the draft almost. But again, that's it's just potential. You know what Bill Parcells used to say about potential. So yeah, I do have Brian Thomas as one of those players that could fall. There's about 5 or 6 players I have no idea where they're going, and all it takes is one team to take them. So we're looking at their actual value, and you try to look at upside. Try to think about what's practical. How much time we got left? Because we got 32 picks, and we're going to do the Carolina Panthers in the first pick in the second round. Do you want to do 2 more?
Yeah, let's try to just squeeze in 2 more then. Let's see. Miami Dolphins coming up next. At number 21, they have a lot of needs on defense, I think.
Yeah.
Who do you have them taking?
This is a weird situation because Tua, to me, he had a really good year. On paper, it looks like they don't need to touch their offense, but they're very fragile. I mean, Tyreek Hill and Waddle are disgusting, but Raheem Mostert is ancient. He had a great year.
Mhm.
Tua is like crystal chandelier. I mean, you touch him, he's gone. I hope he comes back and continues to play healthy. But this could be a sneaky situation where somebody like Michael Penix sneaks in here. But right now, like I said, their defense is not very good. And I have them, and I think this may be the best defensive end in the class is Latu. I can't even pronounce his name, the defensive end out of UCLA.
That's right.
I watched him a little bit. UCLA is not a defensive powerhouse. I mean, they put out some good players in the pros, but he kind of reminds me of a long, lanky Jason Taylor. I don't know what he is, but I do think he is possibly the best defensive end in the class. The problem is his medical. He has got a bad neck. He almost retired from football 2 years ago, and that's going to scare a lot of teams. But his potential side is a great player. So
Mhm.
you have to weigh potential versus medical. And where do you put a player like that? Do you think he can go higher or he's going to fall?
Uh Man, players like that can go anywhere, I guess. But I'd probably say if I'm banking, I'm gonna say he's gonna fall towards the end of a little bit closer to the end of the first, like 25 to 32 range. Um, but I mean the Dolphins need some players. This isn't really what it's like it's not a top end defensive class, I would say.
No, it's
Uh,
not.
lot of good players, but nothing that just pops for you or pops for me. Um, you know, however you pronounce his name, Latu from
Yeah.
UCLA seems like a good guy. He's also kind of after Jared Verse. I feel like he's between like Jared Verse and like kind of Chris Braswell, who I've Chris Braswell and Chop Robinson going in the second round. So anywhere from like the top of the second to kind of middle of the first, I could see Latu going.
Yeah, this could be a Chop Robinson pick, the outside linebacker, defensive end out of Penn State. And like I said,
Mhm.
it depends how teams feel about these guys. And I mean, a lot of these players are just, they're just like kind of one A, B, C. You don't know how they're lined up. I think it's very close, but I don't have any defensive linemen or outside linebackers that are dominant in this whole entire class. It's very weak.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to our last pick of the night, the Philadelphia Eagles. We got 3 minutes left.
Okay.
Let's tackle this one.
It's an interesting team, and the Eagles started off so hot last year. Jalen Hurts, I like the guy. He's kind of proved people wrong, but look at their fantasy lineup right now. They got Barkley. I mean, that looks sick.
Hmm.
Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goddard. I mean, Goddard, when healthy, top 5 tight end, in my opinion, talent wise in the league. A.J. Brown, we see what he can do. Devontae Smith, he can take the top off of defense. They look great on paper. So, and looking at that, they need to get a center because, Kelsey just retired. And I think this might be a pick where the Oregon center goes here to the Philadelphia Eagles. They said he's really, really good. You don't see a lot of centers go high, but even the guard center out of Duke could go right here. But I think the Eagles need to address their defense. And again, I have a cornerback here, and we just talked about his teammate, but I have Mr. Kool-Aid McKinstry here, the cornerback out of Alabama, and I have him compared to Trent McDuffie here, the old cornerback who had a good pro career.
Mm.
But I mean, Kool-Aid is like he's solid all the way around. He's got good coverage skills. I don't think he's as good top end talent as his teammate, but I think he's a plug-in starter day one. How do you feel about the Arizona Cardinals, and what do you think they do in the draft? I mean, the Cardinals, the Eagles.
Yeah, it's a bird.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go probably lean more towards offensive line. I think like you were mentioning the Oregon center, Jackson Powers Johnson or Jackson,
yeah,
or whatever his
yeah.
name is obviously it would be a great replacement for Kelsey. I like Graham Barton from Duke. He can not just play center, he can play pretty much anywhere on the offensive line, and he has. I like him maybe at the Eagles to give him some flexibility, possibly be the center. Kool-Aid is a heck of a player, and maybe the Eagles do go defense. Their defense kind of faltered last year, was a weak spot, but I think that had more to do with the coordinator than it did the players.
Yeah.
On paper, their players look pretty stacked, but yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna maybe actually disagree here and just go offensive line with maybe Graham Barton from Duke.
Yeah, I think that's. I have him going here pretty soon, but that wraps up 12 picks. So we got. We'll do another podcast hopefully early next week with the remaining players, and we only got basically 11 more picks. I want to do the Carolinas because they had the first pick
That's right.
in the second round, but. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on this week. Pay attention, and what do we got to say to our followers here, Cooper?
Uh, we're right and you're wrong. Don't ever forget that.
Straight got to and drill and LTD.